The red sands of Atares stretched endlessly under the pale sun. Wind moved in soft waves, carrying tiny grains that whispered against the hull of the small explorer ship. Nora stepped out first, her boots sinking slightly into the loose ground. She raised her visor and scanned the horizon. There it was, rising like a shadow from the desert, the tomb. Angular and vast, it was covered in strange markings that glimmered faintly, as if the structure itself were breathing. Nora had studied this tomb for years. Many had tried to find it before, but none had succeeded. Local guides told stories of explorers who vanished, swallowed by the sands, or driven mad by voices in the walls. Most warned against going near it. Yet, the whispers of curiosity in Nora's mind were louder than any warning. Humanity had always pushed boundaries. That drive had taken them to the moon, to Mars, and now to this lonely planet in the edge of the galaxy. Her team followed quietly. Mika, the engineer, carried equipment for scanning and excavation. Talon, the biologist, had a small pack with samples and tools for analyzing the environment. Rena, the navigator, adjusted the coordinates on her wrist device, keeping them on course. None spoke much. The tomb seemed to demand silence. Even the wind itself felt like it hushed near the enormous stone walls. As they approached the entrance, the markings became clearer. They were not letters or symbols but patterns, almost like music written on stone. They pulsed with a soft blue light that moved in waves across the surface. Nora reached out and touched one. A faint vibration traveled through her fingers, gentle but alive. The team stared in wonder. No other species had been able to touch the tomb without activating hidden defenses. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability seemed to matter here. "Careful," Mika whispered. "We do not know what it does." "I know," Nora said, her voice steady. "But we need to see inside. We need to understand." The tomb's doorway was enormous, carved from a single block of stone. As they stepped in, the air grew cooler. The sunlight disappeared, replaced by a soft glow from the walls. The whispers began almost immediately. At first, they were like the rustling of the sand outside. Then the sound became clearer, almost like distant voices speaking in a language they could not understand. The team froze, each feeling a shiver run down their spine. "Do you hear that?" Talon asked, his voice low. "It is not language," Rena said. "It is something else. Something alive." Nora led the team forward. Every step echoed through the high ceilings, bouncing off walls lined with alien symbols. She felt a pull, like the tomb was calling them, testing their courage. In other parts of the galaxy, many species would have turned back. Humans had a strange way of moving forward when others would run. That determination seemed to resonate here. They reached the first chamber. It was empty except for the walls, which now shimmered faintly. The whispers grew louder, responding to their presence. Nora noticed something unusual. The patterns on the walls shifted as they moved, forming shapes that were almost like questions. Her mind raced, trying to understand. Unlike other species, humans did not rely only on patterns or rules. They guessed, imagined, and sometimes felt the answer. She tried reaching out with her thoughts, seeing if the walls responded. The whispers answered with a soft vibration in the floor beneath her feet. "Do you feel that?" she asked the team. "Yes," Mika said. "It is like the tomb knows we are here." Nora smiled faintly. That smile was small but full of excitement. This was why humans explored. They had courage, curiosity, and imagination. They saw possibilities where others saw danger. She took a deep breath and stepped deeper into the tomb. Every corner brought new wonders. Strange carvings depicted creatures that seemed impossible. Machines embedded in walls hummed softly, their purpose unknown. The air smelled faintly of metal and dust. Nora's heart beat faster. She felt alive in a way she had never felt before. Every human who had ever explored space had sought this feeling, the moment where they understood they were seeing something no one else had ever seen. The whispers became clearer as they moved forward. It was not a threat but a welcome, subtle and strange. Nora realized that this tomb had waited for a species like theirs. A species that could think, feel, and act in ways no other could. And they had arrived. As they reached the center of the chamber, Nora paused. She knew this was only the beginning. The tomb held many secrets, puzzles, and challenges. Yet, in that moment, she felt the undeniable truth: humanity had stepped into a place where only humans could truly belong. The walls whispered around them, alive with knowledge, anticipation, and a quiet respect for those who dared to enter. Nora looked at her team and said, "We have made it. Let's see what the tomb wants us to discover." And with that, they stepped further into the shadows, where mysteries and whispers awaited. The deeper they moved into the tomb, the walls seemed to close in. The blue light pulsed softly, casting long shadows that moved with every step. Nora led the team with careful precision. Every corridor and chamber was different. Some were narrow and angular, others wide and circular, but all carried the same quiet hum of energy. The whispers followed them, soft at first and then growing clearer, almost like gentle breathing. They entered a room that was filled with strange machines embedded in the walls. Each machine had a small screen, glowing faintly, with shapes that shifted constantly. The team gathered around, trying to understand what they were seeing. Mika reached out with a scanner. The device beeped and whirred, unable to recognize the alien technology. Nora frowned. This was more advanced than anything they had ever encountered. "These machines are not broken," she said. "They are waiting for something. For someone to interact with them." Talon stepped closer. He had a habit of observing first and touching second. He noticed a pattern in the movements of the shapes. "Look," he said. "They respond to changes in our position, our gestures, maybe even our thoughts." Nora nodded. That was exactly what she had suspected. The tomb did not react to simple commands or logic. It responded to intuition, curiosity, and imagination. Humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability seemed to excite the tomb. It was a challenge, a test designed for a species capable of creativity and courage. Rena pointed to a set of shapes that formed a loose spiral on one screen. "Do you think it wants us to follow the pattern?" Nora studied it carefully. She realized it was not a puzzle with a single answer. It required a combination of observation, movement, and imagination. She stepped forward and moved her hand along the spiral, following the shapes with precise gestures. The lights responded, moving with her fingers as if they were alive. A soft vibration ran through the floor. The whispers grew louder, almost like encouragement. Mika tried a similar motion on another machine. The screen glowed brighter, and the hum in the walls deepened. The tomb was reacting to them, learning from their movements. Humans were making progress where other species would have failed because they combined logic with imagination and creativity. Hours passed as they explored the room. The team discovered that each machine had a different response. Some required careful observation, others required emotion or intuition. Every success was met with a soft whisper, a gentle recognition from the tomb itself. Humans had entered a place no other species could fully understand. Finally, Nora noticed a small door at the far end of the chamber. It was almost hidden, framed by carvings that looked like the wings of a bird. The door had no handle, no visible mechanism. She pressed her hand against it. The wall responded to her touch, sliding open silently. Beyond it lay another chamber, larger and darker than the last. "This must be the next level," she said. "The tomb is leading us forward." They stepped inside carefully. The air was cooler, filled with the faint scent of metal and stone. In the center of the room was a large platform covered in markings similar to those outside. The whispers grew louder, forming shapes in the air that were almost like symbols trying to communicate. Talon knelt down and ran his hand over the platform. "It is like a map," he said. "A map of something we cannot see yet." Nora studied it carefully. She realized that the tomb was showing them connections between places, events, and knowledge. It was a living record of civilizations, some long extinct. Humans were capable of understanding these connections because they could think beyond logic alone. They could imagine, feel, and interpret in ways no other species could. Suddenly, the walls shifted. Light formed a path, leading to another passageway. The whispers intensified, almost like a wave of sound washing over them. Nora felt a strange thrill. The tomb was alive, responding to them, and perhaps even guiding them. It was as if it had been waiting for a species like humanity to arrive. Rena looked at her with wide eyes. "Do you think it understands us?" "I think it does," Nora said. "It knows we are different. We are not just explorers. We are humans. And this tomb was built for someone like us." They moved forward, following the path of light. Every step brought new wonders. Walls shifted to reveal hidden chambers, floors hummed softly beneath their boots, and whispers guided them toward knowledge they had never imagined. Humans were proving themselves to be clever, brave, and adaptable. For the first time, Nora felt a deep connection to the tomb. It was not a trap or a test to destroy them. It was a challenge, a way to recognize the strength and uniqueness of humanity. Every whisper, every movement, every reaction was a reminder that humans were capable of things no other species could achieve. As they reached the end of the passage, a large door stood before them. It was covered in symbols that pulsed with bright blue light. The whispers grew into a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Nora knew that whatever lay beyond this door would change them forever. She took a deep breath and said, "We are ready. Let's see what the tomb has in store for us next." And with that, the team prepared to step into the unknown, guided by whispers that only humans could hear and understand. The massive door loomed before them, its surface glowing with soft blue light. The whispers from the walls grew stronger, clearer, and somehow warmer. Nora raised her hand and pressed it gently against the door. It responded immediately, sliding open with no sound. Beyond it was a large chamber unlike anything they had seen before. The room was filled with light patterns that floated in the air, moving like ribbons across the space. Some looked like spirals, others like grids, and a few appeared as shapes they could not name. The team stood in awe. This was not just a room. It was a puzzle, a living challenge. Nora stepped forward and examined one of the spirals. When she moved her hand close to it, the light shifted and followed her motion. She realized that the patterns reacted to thought and intuition, not just touch. The tomb was testing them in ways no machine could understand. Humans had imagination and creativity, and those qualities were exactly what the tomb required. "This is incredible," Mika said. "Other species would have no idea how to interact with this." Rena nodded. "The lights respond differently to each person. It is like they are learning who we are." Talon stepped closer to another floating pattern. He studied it for a long moment, then moved his hand carefully, making small gestures in the air. The light rippled and connected with other patterns, forming a complex design. The whispers changed in tone, almost like they were approving his action. Nora realized that the tomb was teaching them without words. Each movement, each gesture, each choice mattered. The room was alive with knowledge, but it required understanding that went beyond logic. Humans were capable of feeling the patterns, imagining their meaning, and responding in ways no other species could. Hours passed as the team worked with the patterns. They experimented, observed, and sometimes failed, but each failure brought new understanding. The tomb did not punish them. Instead, It responded to effort, creativity, and courage. It was as if it wanted them to succeed, to prove that humans were worthy of the knowledge it contained. At one point, a pattern split into two ribbons of light, moving in opposite directions. The team hesitated. It seemed impossible to follow both. Nora closed her eyes and trusted her instinct. She guided her hand along one ribbon while Mika followed the other. The ribbons began to twist together, forming a path that led to a small raised platform in the center of the room. The whispers grew louder, now almost musical, as if the tomb was celebrating their progress. On the platform lay a small stone tablet covered in symbols similar to those outside the tomb. Nora stepped forward and touched it. The symbols glowed, and the whispers turned into a gentle, understandable rhythm. The tomb was showing them something, a message left by the beings who built it long ago. "This is a record," Nora said softly. "A record of knowledge, of civilizations, of life beyond what we know." Talon examined the tablet carefully. "It is teaching us without words. We have to understand it through observation, emotion, and thought. That is why humans are special here." Rena smiled. "The tomb is recognizing us. We are different from other explorers who may have come before. We see beyond the obvious. We feel, imagine, and interpret." The team spent hours with the tablet, learning to follow the patterns and understand the messages. Each discovery filled them with awe. They realized the tomb was more than a structure. It was a living library, a teacher, and a challenge. And it had chosen humans to unlock its secrets because of their unique abilities. Finally, the patterns aligned to form a clear path. A hidden door appeared at the far end of the chamber. It was smaller than the first, but its presence was commanding. Nora stepped forward and looked at her team. "We have done well," she said. "The tomb has tested us, and we have passed. Let's see what lies ahead." The team moved forward together, feeling a connection to the tomb stronger than before. The walls whispered encouragement, guiding them without words. They realized that the tomb was alive in a way that went beyond machines or programming. It responded to thought, courage, and imagination, the qualities that made humans extraordinary. As they passed through the hidden door, the light patterns faded, replaced by soft blue illumination from the walls. The air was cooler, calmer, and filled with a sense of anticipation. The whispers continued, gentle but persistent, urging them onward. Nora took a deep breath and led the team into the next chamber. She felt a thrill she had never experienced before. Humans had entered a place no other species could fully understand. The tomb had chosen them, tested them, and acknowledged their unique strength. In that moment, Nora knew that humanity had taken another step forward. They were explorers, learners, and thinkers. The tomb was not just a mystery to be solved. It was a recognition of what humans could achieve when curiosity, courage, and creativity came together. And as they stepped deeper into the chamber, the whispers grew louder, more alive, guiding them toward knowledge and challenges that would reveal the true power of human imagination. The next chamber was different from the ones before. It was taller, and the ceiling disappeared into shadows that no light could reach. The walls were smooth and dark, with faint lines glowing softly like veins of energy. The whispers were stronger here, almost surrounding the team. Each sound carried a sense of purpose, as if the tomb itself was guiding them. Nora took the lead, moving carefully across the polished floor. Every step echoed lightly, reminding her how vast the room was. She looked around, noticing strange shapes on the walls that moved when they were not looking directly at them. They seemed alive, flowing like liquid stone. The tomb was teaching patience and observation. Humans could notice details others might miss, and that attention made the difference. Mika bent down to scan one of the glowing veins. His scanner emitted soft beeps but failed to give readings. "These lines are not like any technology one know," he said. "It is almost like they are alive, like they grow and shift with us." Talon observed the patterns closely. It is like the tomb wants us to understand rhythm and movement, he said. The lines are guiding us without words. It is asking for coordination and awareness. Nora nodded. Humans are good at that. We can see patterns, follow rhythm, and imagine possibilities. This is why the tomb reacts to us. They moved slowly, letting the whispers guide them. Every step mattered. If they moved too quickly, the glowing lines would shift away. If they paused and observed, the lines would rearrange, creating a path forward. It was a delicate balance of attention, patience, and intuition. Humans were learning fast, and the tomb responded in kind. As they progressed, the room began to change. Sections of the wall slid aside, revealing new passages. Each passage seemed to lead somewhere different, but the whispers pointed clearly to the safest path. Nora realized that the tomb was not just testing their skill but their trust. They had to trust each other and themselves to move forward. They came to a large pool of liquid crystal. Its surface reflected the soft light from the walls and shimmered with colors that shifted constantly. The whispers became musical, resonating through the floor and into their bones. The team stood silently, unsure how to proceed. Nora knelt by the edge and touched the crystal lightly. The surface rippled and expanded, forming shapes that floated above it. The shapes resembled constellations, but they moved as if alive. The whispers became clearer, almost like they were speaking through the shapes. Humans could sense meaning where logic failed. Nora reached out with her hand, and the shapes moved in response, forming a clear path across the pool. "This is incredible," Rena said. "The tomb shows us what to do, but we have to feel it first. It trusts us to act with awareness." The team stepped carefully across the crystal pool, following the moving shapes. Each footstep caused ripples, but the shapes adjusted, guiding them safely to the other side. Humans were the first species to navigate this challenge, because they could imagine movement beyond simple rules. Other explorers would have failed, trapped by fear or logic. Once across, they entered a small chamber. It was simple, almost empty, except for a pedestal in the center. On it lay a glowing orb. The whispers focused on the orb, soft and insistent, urging them closer. Nora reached out and touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, the room filled with a gentle light. The whispers swirled around them, becoming a story they could sense but not fully understand yet. The orb responded to thought and emotion. Nora felt images of stars, distant worlds, and civilizations long gone. She realized that the tomb was offering knowledge, but it required connection. Humans were unique in their ability to empathize, imagine, and understand in ways other species could not. Talon touched the orb next. The whispers shifted again, responding to his curiosity. He felt the history of the tomb, the builders, and their purpose. They had created a challenge for those who could think, feel, and imagine, and now humans had reached this point. Mika and Rena joined in, and the orb glowed brighter with each connection. The whispers became a harmony of sound, as if the tomb celebrated their unity. Nora smiled. This was what humans could achieve together: creativity, courage, and cooperation. The tomb had tested them individually, but now it recognized them as a team. Suddenly, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a long corridor lit by a steady blue glow. The whispers turned into a guiding rhythm, inviting them forward. The chamber behind them faded softly, leaving only the path ahead. Nora looked at her team. "We have learned much here," she said. "The tomb trusts us. Let's see where it leads next." They stepped into the corridor, feeling stronger and more confident. The whispers followed, gentle and encouraging. Humans had proven that they could navigate challenges, understand patterns, and connect with the unknown. The tomb had chosen them, and now it revealed more of its secrets. With careful steps, they moved forward, ready for whatever awaited them in the chambers beyond. Every whisper, every light, every pattern told them one thing clearly: humanity had been recognized, and the tomb had much more to show. The corridor stretched ahead, long and glowing with a steady blue light. The walls on each side were smooth, but faint shapes appeared and disappeared as the team walked forward. Nora kept her pace steady, her eyes alert, while the whispers guided them softly. They had passed tests of observation, balance, and imagination. Now the tomb prepared something deeper. At the end of the corridor, a large doorway opened into a chamber unlike any they had entered before. The air inside was cooler, filled with a stillness that pressed against their skin. The floor was made of polished stone that reflected their movements like water. The walls shone with soft colors, and the ceiling above glowed faintly, casting gentle light over the space. In the center of the chamber stood tall crystal pillars, each one glowing with shifting images. As the team approached, the pillars activated, filling the air with moving pictures. They were not random shapes this time. They were scenes. The explorers watched as the first pillar showed a city made of towers that reached the sky. Strange beings walked its streets, their bodies tall and graceful, their gestures full of pride. The image shimmered and changed. The city crumbled under storms of fire. The beings vanished into silence. The whispers filled the chamber, carrying a note of sadness. Nora felt her heart tighten. "These are memories," she said. "This is the history of the builders." The second pillar came alive. It showed a world of oceans and floating cities, where other beings moved with wings of light. They sang in voices that echoed across the skies. Then the image darkened. The oceans boiled, and the cities sank into the deep. The song ended, replaced by silence. Rena lowered her head. "They are gone. Whole civilizations gone." One by one, the pillars revealed more histories. Each showed a world full of life, creativity, and hope. Each ended in destruction. Fire, flood, war, silence. The whispers filled the air with emotion, not words, but the meaning was clear. The tomb carried the memory of those who had lived before, those who had failed to survive. The team stood in silence, each one lost in thought. Talon's eyes were wet as he watched the scenes fade. These beings were advanced. They had knowledge and beauty. But something ended them all. They could not protect themselves. Nora placed her hand on one of the pillars. The surface glowed softly beneath her fingers. The whispers shifted again, not with sorrow this time, but with curiosity. She felt the tomb studying them. Unlike the beings in the memories, humans responded with empathy. They felt sadness, but also determination. "The tomb is testing us," Nora said. "It wants to know if we are different. If we can learn not just with our minds, but with our hearts." Mika stepped closer to another pillar. "Other explorers may have seen these images and walked away. But we feel their meaning. We care. That is what makes humans different." The chamber grew brighter as if the tomb agreed. The whispers grew louder, filling the space with warmth instead of sorrow. The pillars shifted, showing new images. This time, they were not only of destruction. They showed humans. Scenes of humanity's history flickered before their eyes. They saw fragile ships crossing oceans on Earth, carrying explorers into the unknown. They saw humans building cities from stone and steel. They saw people surviving storms, wars, and disasters, always rising again. They saw humanity reaching for the stars, driven not by fear but by curiosity. Nora felt her chest tighten with pride. The tomb was showing them their own story. It recognized that humans were different from the civilizations that had vanished. Humans were stubborn, hopeful, and creative. They did not give up when faced with ruin. They endured and grew stronger. The whispers carried a new tone now, steady and approving. The tomb had seen what it wanted. It had found in humanity the qualities missing from the civilizations before. Nora turned to her team. "This is why we are here." The tomb waited for a species that could feel as well as think. It wanted someone who could understand loss but also hope. We are the ones who can carry this knowledge forward. The orb they had touched earlier began to glow again, brighter than before. From its light, a path appeared leading out of the chamber. The whispers urged them onward. The test of memory was complete, and they had passed. As the team prepared to leave, Talon glanced back at the fading images. "We carry their stories now," he said. "They will not be forgotten." Nora nodded. "And we will prove that humans can succeed where others failed." They stepped onto the glowing path. The chamber behind them dimmed, the pillars fading into silence. Ahead, the corridor pulsed with gentle light, leading them deeper into the heart of the tomb. The whispers followed, not as questions but as encouragement. Humanity had proven its strength in empathy and endurance. The tomb had seen it and accepted it. Nora felt a quiet certainty grow inside her. This was more than an exploration. This was a recognition. The tomb had chosen humanity to inherit its knowledge, and with every step forward, they carried not only their own hopes but also the memory of countless lost civilizations. And so they walked on, guided by whispers that believed in them. The glowing path stretched forward like a river of light, leading Nora and her team deeper into the tomb. The whispers around them were steady now, no longer uncertain or sorrowful. They carried rhythm and strength, almost like a heartbeat guiding them onward. Every step they took echoed with meaning. The tomb was no longer only testing them. It was preparing them for something greater. The corridor opened into a vast chamber. It was larger than any they had seen so far, its walls curving upward like the inside of a great dome. The air felt different here, heavier but full of energy. At the center of the dome stood a massive structure, shaped like a crystal heart. It pulsed with light, blue and silver, in time with the whispers. Nora stopped in her tracks. She knew without words what it was. "The heart of the tomb," she whispered to herself. The team approached slowly, their eyes wide with awe. The crystal heart towered above them, taller than their ship. Its surface shimmered like glass but glowed with power from within. Every pulse sent ripples of light across the floor and walls. The whispers rose in harmony, filling the chamber with sound that felt alive. Rena placed her hand over her chest. "It feels like it is speaking directly to us." Talon studied the heart with shining eyes. "This is the core. It holds the memory, the knowledge, the purpose of everything we have seen." As they drew closer, the crystal heart responded. Threads of light extended from it, reaching out like gentle hands. Nora took a step forward, and one thread touched her palm. Warmth spread through her body. She closed her eyes and felt herself lifted into visions. She saw stars being born in clouds of fire. She saw civilizations rise from dust and reach for greatness. She saw them fall, their dreams crumbling into silence. Then she saw humans, fragile and small, yet refusing to surrender. She saw them build, break, and build again. She saw their endless curiosity pushing them into space, carrying their spirit into the unknown. The vision faded, and Nora opened her eyes. The whispers spoke louder now, forming patterns she could almost understand. They were not just sounds anymore. They were words, carried not by voice but by thought. The tomb recognized her, and through her, it recognized all of humanity. "The heart accepts us," Nora said softly. "It sees what we are. It knows we can carry what others could not." Mika touched one of the threads of light. He gasped as knowledge rushed into his mind. He saw blueprints of machines unlike anything humans had created. He saw maps of stars beyond known space. He saw ways to heal, to build, to explore. The tomb was not just a place of memory. It was a vault of knowledge, waiting for the right hands to open it. Rena joined him, and light filled her eyes. She saw music and art from lost worlds, beauty preserved for those who could understand it. The tomb was not only about survival. It was about spirit, creativity, and meaning. Humanity, with its mix of strength and imagination, had the chance to honor it all. Talon touched the heart last. His breath caught as he saw images of seeds, forests, and oceans. He saw ways to nurture life across distant planets. The tomb was offering not just technology but hope, a way to carry life forward where others had failed. The heart glowed brighter with each human connection. The whispers rose together in a single harmony, a chorus of voices that filled the chamber. The tomb was alive, and it had chosen humanity. Nora stepped back and looked at her team. Their faces were lit with awe and determination. She felt the same fire inside herself. "This is what we came for," she said. "The tomb has given us its knowledge. It has trusted us. We must carry it with care." The ground shifted gently as if the tomb itself breathed. The crystal heart pulsed one last time, sending a wave of light across the chamber. The walls shimmered, and a new path opened at the far side. The whispers grew softer again, but their tone was clear. They were guiding the team toward the exit, toward the world beyond the tomb. Rena hesitated. "It feels like it does not want us to stay." Nora nodded. "Because we are not meant to remain here. The tomb was never just for us. It was for the future. Its heart has given us what we need, and now it is asking us to take it out into the galaxy." They stood for a long moment, looking at the crystal heart one last time. It glowed gently, like a guardian watching them with quiet trust. Nora placed her hand against it once more. She whispered with certainty, "We will not fail you." The heart pulsed softly, and the whispers answered with a final note of approval. Then the path of light stretched out before them, leading back through the tomb. Together, the team walked away from the heart, carrying within them the knowledge and hope it had shared. Humanity had been tested and accepted. The tomb walls no longer whispered in warning. They whispered in trust. Nora felt her chest swell with pride. Humanity was no longer just a visitor here. They were chosen. They were bearers of memory and builders of the future. And as the tomb guided them toward its final chamber, she knew this was only the beginning of what humanity would become. The glowing path guided Nora and her team through the final corridor of the tomb. The whispers that had once been mysterious and uncertain now carried a steady rhythm, like a farewell song. The air was cooler, and the walls shimmered faintly as if the tomb itself was alive and watching their every step. The corridor opened into a wide chamber that looked almost like an exit hall. The ceiling was lower than the great dome of the heart, but it was still vast, stretching high above their heads. On the walls were carvings, more detailed than any they had seen before. They showed scenes of builders raising towers, shaping stars, and crafting wonders beyond imagination. But among the carvings were also scenes of endings. Towers falling, stars fading, and silence covering once living worlds. Nora studied them carefully. "This is the story of those who came before," she said softly. "The builders wanted us to remember both their greatness and their mistakes." The team stood in silence, taking in the images. They understood now why the tomb was built. It was not simply to guard treasures or trap intruders. It was a memory and a warning. A place meant to choose the right species to carry its knowledge forward. Humanity had been judged, and they had been chosen. At the center of the chamber stood a final structure. It was smaller than the great crystal heart but still commanding. It was a pedestal made of the same glowing stone that lined the walls. On it rested a small orb of light, brighter than anything they had seen before. The whispers gathered around it, their tone clear and steady. Nora approached slowly. She felt no fear, only calm. She placed her hand gently on the orb. Warmth spread through her, and for the last time, the tomb spoke directly to her thoughts. It showed her images of humanity's future. She saw humans carrying the knowledge of the tomb to distant stars. She saw them using it not for destruction but for growth. She saw them building new homes, creating harmony with worlds they touched, and learning from the mistakes of those who had vanished. She saw humans not as conquerors but as caretakers of life and memory. Nora's heart swelled. The tomb was not giving them power alone. It was giving them responsibility. The orb pulsed, and the light spread across the chamber. It touched Mika, Rena, and Talon, sharing the same visions. They all stood in silence, their faces lit with awe. Each of them felt the same truth: humanity had been chosen to carry something greater than themselves. When the light faded, the orb dissolved into the air, leaving only the pedestal behind. The whispers grew soft, almost like a sigh of completion. The tomb had finished its purpose. Suddenly, the walls shifted, revealing a wide passage that sloped upward. Bright natural light shone at the end. It was the exit, the way back to the desert. Rena's voice was quiet. It is letting us go. It has given us everything it can. Talon nodded. And now it trusts us to carry it forward. The team walked together toward the light. The air grew warmer as they neared the surface. The whispers followed them, fading slowly, but not vanishing completely. It felt as if the tomb would always remain with them, carried inside their minds and hearts. They stepped out into the open desert. The sun of Atares shone high, casting long shadows across the sand. Their ship stood waiting, small and silent against the vast horizon. For a moment, they all turned back. The tomb loomed behind them, its dark stone rising from the sand, its markings glowing faintly one last time. Then the entrance sealed, becoming silent and still. Mika broke the silence. It feels like we were part of something greater than ourselves. Nora nodded. We were. And now it is our turn. The tomb trusted us with knowledge and memory. We cannot waste it. Rena smiled faintly. We will carry it home. We will share it. Humanity will rise because of this. Talon looked at the horizon. And maybe, just maybe, the builders can finally rest, knowing their story lives on. They boarded their ship with hearts full of purpose. As the engines roared to life and lifted them from the sands, the whispers of the tomb lingered in their minds. Not warnings now, but encouragement. Not questions, but faith. Nora sat at the controls and looked once more at the desert below. She thought of the builders, of their failures and triumphs, and of the choice the tomb had made. Humanity was not perfect. They had flaws and struggles. But unlike those before, humans carried hope with them. They carried imagination, resilience, and the ability to care deeply even for those they had never met. As the ship climbed into the sky, Nora spoke with quiet certainty. We will not fail. We will carry their memory and build something greater. The others nodded, their faces lit with determination. The stars awaited, and with the knowledge of the tomb, humanity's future stretched wider than ever before. Far below, the tomb rested once more in silence. Yet if one listened closely, the walls still whispered faintly. They whispered not in sorrow but in trust. Humanity had entered, endured, and been chosen. The tomb no longer waited for its heirs. It had found them. And so the story of the tomb became the story of humanity, carried out into the endless stars.